Turning her left arm over so her palm was facing up, Dad used his long, wiry finger and drew a pretend cut upon her wrist, saying, "The inmates make a shiv. I've talked to you about that before." Not waiting for an answer, he continued on. "Then they will use it on themselves and make a long cut on their arm, like this." Hello, you are listening to In My Words. The book I am reading from is titled The Monster We Call Dad by D.A. Riles. This book is not intended for young readers. After each reading session, I will show or discuss a various topic of interest. Leaving a comment will help my videos get noticed more and allow other people to view them. Also, purchasing one or all three of my books will be very helpful. My newest book is out, titled The Sensitives. You can find it at Amazon.com under The Sensitives by D.A. Riles. Thank you for your time and consideration. Chapter 34. Here's How to Do It. Sarah enjoyed baking in her Susie Homemaker oven. From the moment she received the gift, she began to bake a lot. It was much easier than the real oven, and Mom and Dad didn't get mad at her when she would use the food from the refrigerator. Sarah came up with many good food ideas with her new oven. During the summer, Sarah walked over to the neighbor's apple tree looking for an apple that might be in the road or hanging over the road. She saw a small apple hanging precariously over the street. She didn't like doing it, but she felt that it wasn't really stealing as long as it wasn't on their property. Anyway, that's what she told herself. And besides, she was starving. Sarah made apple pie with the apples that she found that day. It was easy to do, and it was a nice, sweet treat for her, especially when she didn't have to share it with everyone else. Today, however, she was making one of her favorite made-up dishes. It was a casserole. Dad came in from being outside. He had been changing the oil in the car. He went into the kitchen to wash up. As he entered the living room, he could smell the aroma of the food. Walking towards the bathroom, he saw Sarah. She was looking into her little oven to see if the food was done. "What you makin'?" he asked with real interest. Looking up at the tall man towering over her, she responded cheerfully, "The potato stuff." Sarah liked this Dad. She liked it when he was genuinely interested. For some reason, Sarah could see that he liked it when she made food, even if it were only for herself. Perhaps it reminded him of his youth, when his mother would cook for him. Dad squatted near the oven. Smells good," he smiled. Sarah smiled up at Dad. Opening the oven door, Sarah's wrists were facing upwards. Dad saw the small cut and asked what happened. She told him how she had cut it on the chalkboard. Trying to make small talk with his young daughter, Dad questioned, "Do you know how many inmates try to commit suicide in prison?" For whatever reason, Dad liked talking to Sarah about his exploits at work. He would tell her many horror stories of the events that would take place in the prison. Usually his speeches were interesting, and she truly enjoyed listening to them. Sometimes they were haunting or sad. This time, it was memorable. Sarah looked up at Dad and didn't really understand the question. She knew that something had quickly changed, but was unsure as to what it was. "No," came her soft reply. "Here, let me show you," he said in his teaching words. Dad took Sarah by the hand, saying, "Don't worry, it'll only take a minute. I won't let you have your food burn. It's too good to do that," he smiled. Dad really meant what he said, for Sarah could see it in his eyes. They would take on a sparkle any time she did something to his liking. Dad seemed to really appreciate the effort that Sarah took to make her meals and desserts. The two walked into the kitchen, and Dad told Sarah to take a seat on the kitchen chair. Apprehension made her eyes widen, but she kept her head down so Dad wouldn't see. Turning her left arm over so her palm was facing up, Dad used his long, wiry finger and drew a pretend cut upon her wrist, saying, "The inmates make a shiv. I've talked to you about that before." Not waiting for an answer, he continued on. "Then they will use it on themselves and make a long cut on their arm, like this." With her head cocked to one side, Sarah watched Dad draw an imaginary line on her arm. She was interested, but didn't understand what it had to do with her small cut. Thinking he was really teaching his daughter something of value, he persisted. You see, a lot of people think that they can make a cut straight across, like that one that you have on your wrist now. Smiling at Sarah, he continued, but you see, with a cut like that, it's easy to sew up. Now, here comes the interesting part, he piped up. When the inmates cut it the long way, there's no way to sew it up in time before they bleed to death. Sarah was quiet. She didn't know how she was supposed to respond, but she knew she needed to say something before Dad got mad at her lack of interest. Looking up with innocent, questioning eyes, Sarah said, "Do they ever live?" That question seemed to make Dad happy, and he answered, "Most of them do, 'cause they're so stupid, or maybe they just want some time away from the prison, 'cause they don't usually cut it deep enough. So they get it sewn up at the infirmary and sent back to their cell or put on watch so they don't do it again." Was the lesson done? He seemed so nonchalant about it all, as if he were instructing a student how to mix chemicals together. After many years, Sarah would finally come to realize that Dad lacked judgment in teaching a child and that his ways were not beneficial. But for now, she just took in everything around her and tried to understand his misguided lessons. Letting go of Sarah's wrist, Dad said, "Now, let's get back to your food before it burns." A warm smile crossed his face, for he felt proud of himself for sharing an experience with his daughter. Sarah learned a lot from Dad's words that day. He taught her something that would live with her throughout her life. His words ignited a deep, dark beast inside her being. It opened her world up to something new, something that a child should never feel. But it was too late. The small beast bore its way into her thoughts. It was a beast which would cause her pain and yet bring her relief. During times of deep depression and despair, the beast would show itself and help Sarah to cope with her pain. But was it a healthy coping mechanism? Sarah would come to learn in her later life that the help was only temporary, and it most certainly was not healthy. This beast had a name. It was called Cutter. Please like, share, and subscribe. I look forward to having you join me again next time, where I will show another topic, and I will continue to read from the book titled The Monster We Call Dad by D.A. Riles, which you can purchase from Amazon.com. My newest book is out, titled The Sensitives. You can find it at Amazon.com under The Sensitives by D.A. Riles. Thank you for having joined me.